I went back and started taking courses, knowing, preparing myself to leave the steel mill. So I saw it in the Warren Tribune, the ad came in the paper that they were looking for firefighters and policemen. So I talked to some folks about it, and they wasn't making as much money as I was in the steel mill, because I was working long hours, I was making a lot more money. So people saw I was interested, and I was always involved in the church, so I was well known in the community. And during this time, I was training amateur boxers. I was well known, not only locally, but across the country. And so when I applied for the fire department position, I got the applications, and I filled it out and turned it in. Myself and there was 5 other African Americans, blacks. We applied. We took the test at the same time. At the time, I scored a 73.9, which meant I missed passing the test by 1.1. You had to pass the test before you could get credit for your military experiences. I joined the Marine Corps Reserves when I was in high school and over in Youngstown, and I served 5 years active duty and 3 years inactive. And I came out as a sergeant and went out for 8 years. They tried to keep me to stay, but I couldn't afford to stay there because I was making too much money. At the time, I was on the fire department. Well, while I was at the fire department, I took a test and got a real estate license. And while I was at the fire department, I also got an insurance license. I didn't become a stockbroker till later. But in the meantime, I took some courses in labor relations when I was at the steel mill, took labor courses at Ohio State University. And that's when I seen one of the most horrific things I ever saw in my life. We was coming back from the student union. You Ohio State people would know what the student union is, a center for students. You know, that's what it's like, the center of activity at the student union there at Ohio State. We coming back from class about 4 o'clock in the afternoon with myself and 2 other brothers, Mr. Williams and Mr. Jerry Patterson. We was coming back, and there was 2 white guys walking with us. I forget their name, but they was from the Youngstown area. And so we saw a police car drove up by us going real fast, and they made an abrupt stop. But before that, just 2 seconds ahead, the black guy was walking, like half-trodden, walking away from him. So police car is 2 police cars, driving each one of the truck. Both of them stopped and hit the guy off. He stopped. They both got out of their cars and started throwing that man down, stumping him. Now, I must have been maybe 40 or 50 yards away from him, okay? So I got out, go and try to stop him, okay? Jerry Patterson, now I was in my mid-20s, and Jerry was probably in his early 40s, okay? He ran and tackled me. He's gonna get us all killed down here, so, excuse me. So, from watching that happen, okay, at that time, Columbus was considered one of the most segregated cities in America, worse than it was in Alabama. Because most of the people in the police department at the time came up from West Virginia and Kentucky to get those jobs, okay? And so as a result, they didn't have very few black people on the police department. We had way more police on Warren's police station and Cleveland, way more than Columbus had, okay? Because the black folks just didn't take those jobs. They hired them hillbillies, use the expression, that's what we call them, okay, back in the time. So as a result of that, that gave me a poor taste for, you know, for being a policeman. So, even with that, I said, no, I won't do that. So after I took the test the first time, I felt like I took the test, but I didn't know you can go in within 6 weeks or 4 weeks, something, you can go back and look at your test scores. Didn't nobody tell me that, okay? So result, they cheated me. So about 3 or 4 months later, a group of black clergy, head of the Urban League, the NAACP, they all called for me to meet with them at the Urban League. They met with the mayor of Warren at the time, Mr. Walter Pestrak, okay? He's gone now, but he's the most progressive people I've ever met. He's a Romanian. And Walter had been in a very, called a socialist group party, okay? with Attorney Breckenridge and Mr. Trice, okay, who became the president of the National Painters Association. He was a graduate of Wilberforce College, and we all know Attorney Breckenridge. Okay, he was active in the civil rights movement, notion. But they were two of my heroes in business. So they got together with me and said, "Listen, we talked to the mayor, and he said it's time for a black person to go on the fire department. They know your background, okay, and they want you to take the test again." So they talked to me. They said, "But we got one problem." I said, "What you mean you got a problem?" They said, "No, you've been associated with them Muslims, okay, and everybody's afraid of Muslims, and you can't let them know that you're a Muslim." I said, "Who said I was?" Okay. They said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Who said I was?" And so they left that alone, okay. But I never accepted Islam in that tradition. I used to go to the meetings. Matter of fact, I numbered Malcolm X as one of my personal friends. And when I was first introduced to Muhammad Ali, I was already had background in boxing. They introduced him to me. My Muslim name is Ali Akbar Muhammad. And but I never gave up Jesus, okay? If you ask me what religion I am, I'm a religion of God. And you call him by many names. The name I know best that I acknowledge is Jesus. Now, if you call, going a little ahead of myself, but I need to come back to that. Back in the day, as we was taught at the time, Muslims did not, but necessarily black, they did not necessarily believe in Jesus because they didn't know the history. But I told you, I'm a historian. And I read back in the day, and what the book really says. So that's a whole different story. But by being that exposure, I had been able to deal with some issues that other folks wasn't.
So finish telling me about how you met with the black leaders and they encouraged you to take the fire test again.
Yeah, what really hit me was, I told them about my experience at Ohio State when I come to that union meeting, and they just dropped their heads. They knew it was that way. And so, but they said, "Well, we know all that. That happened to many of us," and I understood that, okay. And they said, "But the times have changed, okay, and the mayor's going to support you, okay, and they know you deserve to be on that. If they need you to take the test again, okay." And he said, "If you take that test, you pass it, he's going to appoint you, okay." Now, when you take a test in civil service, it's a state law. If you're in the top 3, they can appoint the first, second, or third person, okay? And so I took the test and I passed it, okay? So they passed over me the first time, and they passed over me the second time, okay? I took the test a third. Now, if they pass over you 3 times, they take you off the list, okay? And I didn't know that. And people noticed involved, but they didn't tell me that, okay? So they said, come back again, say, you need to take the test again because they have enough tests coming up. They didn't have to have enough people on the previous test. They didn't tell me it's already on this list for the second test. I took it a third time before I got appointed. And the day I got appointed, on the front page, I didn't get a job now. Robert Saffold, the first black to pass the fire exam. Didn't get a job now, but that's how important it was, I guess, to the public at that time. So a few months later, they appointed me to that position. So now, when I went to the fire department, I started studying the real estate license.